I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, an intellectual property firm specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I do the marketing for Gearhart Law and I have my own startup.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk with startups, small businesses, and discuss the intellectual property that helps them flourish. Today, we have a very special guest, Guy Powell, who's the founder of ProRelevant, and he's an author and marketing strategist, as well as an ROI expert. So we're going to get lots of good marketing tips from him.
And then we have two excellent presenters. I have to ask, are you in pain physically? Because if you are, you want to hear what Christian Seale has to say with Vitruvia. He's got a non-surgical method to help you. I'm very interested in this. And then women, do you want to feel empowered? Do you want to go to a fantastic event in November in Delaware? Niki Brown has the perfect thing for you. It's called Ignite Summit, and she'll tell you all about it.
Sounds too good to be true. But before we get to our distinguished guests, it's time for IP in the news. And what are we talking about now?
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and... What is that?
So Winnie the Pooh, that was written many years ago by A.A. Milne, is coming off of copyright. And so that means that anybody can use it. Now, Disney did a lot with it, so you can't use any of the Disney stuff, but you can use the name. So this person, and I don't have his name in front of me, wanted to be the first to get there with something about Winnie the Pooh. And so he decided to do a horror film.
Which I think is absolutely horrible, because I remember my mother's and sitting on her knee and being all comfortable, and she reading Winnie the Pooh books to me. And this is like turning it into a horror movie just completely destroys all of those fantastic childhood memories.
Well, I thought it could be kind of funny, but then I watched the trailer and it was super bloody.
Yeah, it's very bloody, and I guess it's gory. And what I understand is that Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, tiny little Piglet, becomes feral, and become serial killers, and they try to kill Christopher Robin because he abandoned them.
And there's a little grave there where it says Eeyore R.I.P. So I guess Eeyore's dead.
Yes, I guess all of Eeyore's misery finally came to fruition at some point. I don't know. Maybe he was killed by the bear and the...
So just for copyright, so Disney still has copyright to the stuff they did with it, right? Because they didn't use the red shirt. Well, it depends on
when the copyrights expire. So, I mean, it's what... the book was written by A.A. Milne a long time ago. And so I would imagine that a lot of the original cartoons are off copyright. So Disney probably added some things, but look at, if they can make a horror movie out of it, then that really they've lost, most of their important rights. So,
and there's no way to extend those.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, this movie is like up there with Abraham Lincoln, the Vampire Slayer, right? It's just that makes
Pride
sense.
and Prejudice and Zombies, right? People love doing this to our classics.
Anyway, I guess we all have to watch it now, but it's time for
No,
Richard's
I'm not watching it.
Roundtable.
Sorry, not watching it.
Okay, well, I'll watch it. It's time for Richard's Roundtable, and we'd love to get our guests' opinions on this, serious development in the world of intellectual property. Let's start with our guest, Guy Powell. Welcome to the show, Guy. What are your thoughts on this evolving Winnie the Pooh saga?
Yeah, hi. Great to be here, and thank you. As you were talking about it, I had a couple of questions, but I was thinking about how a brand can lose control of their brand, and in particular in social media, and it very much mirrors exactly what's happened now with the Winnie the Pooh brand, so to speak. So if I get a reputation attack with it, and if it's false or whatever, I can lose my reputation in social media and in marketing, and then then I have to try and figure out how to repair it. In this case with Winnie the Pooh, I'm kind of I don't know how you could repair it once that brand gets destroyed with that horror movie, that horrible horror movie. I can't imagine what they can do to get that brand back. So it may be destroyed forever.
It's pretty sad.
Yeah, I mean, I as you were talking through it, I was thinking the same thing. And you think about all the kids that grew up with this story, and it's like a nice thing, and there's a sort of wholesomeness there to the cartoon characters and some humor, and a lot of children probably benefited from hearing some of those stories. And like you said, once this comes out, you really wonder what's going to happen to the franchise,
Uh,
right?
Well, and this kind of ties into last week when you weren't here, but um, but we talked about how Oprah's company Harpo sued these two young women who started a podcast, all things about Oprah, and were calling like using her name all over the place, and they named the podcast like Oprah something, I forget what, and Oprah was really smart to say, look, you could really destroy my brand if people think this is sanctioned by me.
Right.
So
It really is very interesting. Christian, welcome to the show. What are your thoughts on all this?
Thank you for having me, and happy Wednesday to everyone. I was thinking about a quote somebody told me yesterday that Albert Einstein said the most important decision we will make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or a hostile universe. And I guess the people that made this maybe think we live in a hostile universe, and I would tend to think that we live in a friendly one. And so, to the extent that they could make something like Winnie the Pooh, Pigs Do Fly, or something kind of fun and creative, I think that might be a much better thing for the world in the brand.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, it's definitely the producers of the show, and it's a low budget movie too. Are just trying to get some hype, and they're trying to, uh, you know, uh, obviously trade off of the complete 180-degree brand, and they are kind of ruining it for everybody,
But so
right?
here's the thing, they wanted to be the first ones to use Winnie the Pooh after it came off copyright. So why does your brain immediately go to horror? Like, what is wrong? I agree with you. Like you can see the world as a good place or a bad place, and that's how they see the world, I guess.
I guess it is, or they're trying to make money off the people. Who knows? Anyway, Nikki,
Yes.
please give us. You don't have to agree with any of this, by the way. You may love the idea, and that's fine with us.
I think it's amazing. No. Um, honestly, a brand at times, people create brands that they think cater to the culture. And surprise, I can't say I'm surprised by this because there's been so many bizarre situations and remakes of things, and I will not be surprised if there is an entire underground community that gravitates towards it. And and on some level, there's a lot of things that have been idyllic and whimsical from generations that I grew up in that are really kind of turning to dust. I mean, my daughter is 19, and there's things that I'm bringing up to her, and she's like, what is that? I'm like, what? You don't understand what Winnie the Pooh is? Like, if I said that to her now, she would be like, okay, so what?
Yeah.
So there really is a culture out there that is really changing. And somewhere or another, they believe that there is because this would never have happened 20 years ago.
Right.
I don't think anybody would have even dared to think that it would be acceptable 20 years ago to even remake. That's like remaking Cinderella, into she's a serial killer. Like you wouldn't do it. You would not have done it 20 years ago because the culture would not have allowed it. Somewhere or another, I feel like there's a culture out there that's allowing it.
Wow, that is really insightful, and I think you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wouldn't be doing it if somebody didn't want to see it.
Exactly.
And they're not doing it just for laughs. They're doing it
for money.
To make money.
Yeah, and they're going to make some money, I think.
And
they're going to not a ton, but I think they're going to make some money.
They're going to start having secret Winnie the Pooh parties where everybody dresses up like Winnie the Pooh characters and walks around with knives and blood and
okay, well let's move on. Kenya, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's horrific and genius in the same breath. And I think that, if you can take a well-established brand that's has recognition and you can flip it into something else. I mean, what I would have maybe done is, the anime characters, like that's like a whole world of like,
Mhm.
I would have did something like that, like flipped it into another world. To her point earlier about the culture being there, I think there is an opportunity to make money. And I think if you do it the right way, you could probably make a lot of money. So it wasn't a bad idea. I just think it's aligned not with the best intent.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
Well, now you guys have me thinking, because maybe we should rename Passage to Profit Passage, Blood and Patents or something like that, because there's obviously going to be a culture out there that wants the horrific side of entrepreneurship.
Or a funny side or anything. I think if you flip it into anything, it could work. But
It could,
I like how Elizabeth is looking at you right now.
that's her. We're going to have a discussion after the show.
Right. That is, you are in a lot of trouble, sir.
No, you're trying too hard to be funny.
Well, I don't think I actually thought that was like neutrally funny. I didn't think I was like trying too hard. Anyway,
But what could we do with Gearhart Law? We shouldn't go there.
well, no, of course not. Gearhart Law is the bedrock of the entrepreneurial community. So why there's nothing there to even. So anyway, Guy, welcome to the show, Guy Powell. He has been really a marketing expert for a long, long time. And he works with major brands. He's made a lot of major brands like Dove soap, very successful. And he has a lot of insights on marketing and return on investment, which always used to be sort of the bugaboo of marketing, right? As you spend this money on marketing, and what do you get out of it? So welcome to the show, Guy. And, maybe you could talk about your book, which is Marketing After COVID. And there's probably some pretty interesting thoughts there too. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And the book is called Post-COVID Marketing Machine. And the idea is primarily, first of all, is to take your marketing activities and connect them to sales. And that is the biggest challenge. And certainly for smaller businesses, it gets more and more challenging. For larger businesses, they hire folks like my company, and we then do a lot of data and analytics to be able to do that connection so that they can say, we spent $1 million on a TV ad and we sold $100 million in insurance or whatever it happens to be. And one of the things that's also kind of critical in what we're doing is because we are making that connection, the marketers' butts, so to speak, are on the line. And because now they have to deliver. When you're a company that has shareholders and you're on the stock exchange and you're listed or what have you, then their butt is on the line, and their bonus is based on whether they can help grow the business. And so for quite a few of our companies, our clients, our efforts actually determine what their bonuses are. And so because we then use a very sophisticated, very systematic approach to build that connection between marketing and sales, and we do that by building a marketing machine. So you think about a machine, you put dollars in, you put energy in, you put resources in, and then out comes something. And in our case, out comes sales. And so that's the idea behind the marketing machine. And then obviously with COVID and the enormous disruption that took place, then we wrote a new version of it called the post-COVID marketing machine. And that's then what my book is all about.
Well, I can certainly say as a small business owner, my bonus and butt are tied to our marketing as well. So it's not just big companies. And
yeah.
Some specific questions, though, if that's okay. I mean, this is edutainment, so we're trying to educate. So during COVID, we all networked, we all got on Zoom. We were all like, oh my gosh, this is all we can do. But now we're post-COVID. How important is it to go to in-person events, to hold in-person events, to your networking, to your marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. And well, first of all, the more important thing is to start measuring whether they are important or not. That is probably the critical thing that small businesses don't do, is to start to measure. And that I think is the one key takeaway for for the audience, is to realize that whether you are a small business or a big business, measurement is critical. Because if I had been measuring before COVID, and then I measured through COVID, and now hopefully post-COVID, then I could start to determine that when I go to this event, or when I go to meet people, or when I do a Zoom call, or when I do something else, that I started to get response. And the response is either better or worse than before. And so then by measuring consistently and constantly, then I'll be able to answer your question as to whether it makes sense to do the Zoom calls or go to meetings or whatever it happens to be.
Oh, that's a great insight. Yeah, we try to keep track of where our clients come from, and we're pretty good 90% of the time at recording that information. And I think that that's really important. So the other thing is, if you're using your website to attract a lot of business, what are some of the most important parameters to look at for the analytics for your website?
Yeah, and it definitely depends on, small business versus large business. The two things that are clearly important are the number of visits you get, and then how much engagement. So does that visitor stay for 1 minute, 10 minutes, or 10 seconds? And that's pretty critical. And then being able to see that activity right after you did something. So if we sent out a direct mail, or if we sent out an email, or we did a series of social posts or whatever, to be able to see whether there was an up or down in activity that kind of reflected the timing of those marketing actions that you did. The other thing is to really start to understand where those visits came from. And we're doing an analysis right now for a furniture company, and we're looking at exactly where those visits came from. Now, some of them you can tell. Some of them, if you're using Google Analytics, which I strongly recommend for small business, Adobe and Google Analytics for larger businesses works just as well. And but there you can start to see where your visits are coming from, and but also you get visits that you don't know where they came from. And so one of the things that we do is we start to correlate. We did a direct mail or an email or an event, and we saw all of a sudden, visits, generic visits coming to the website, and it went up and it went down. And so then we can start to make the logical conclusion that bump in visits came from that marketing action.
Sure. It sounds fascinating, and it sounds like marketing now is much more than just the creative. It's really obtaining data and analyzing the data and understanding that. I remember when we were first starting out, and we knew those tools were there, but it was so hard to find the time to actually, track all of the information that we felt like we needed. And so that's like an entrepreneur's bugaboo, is that's there, and it could help, but finding time to use those tools. I would say we've been in business now 16 years, and it's really only the last 3 or 4 that we've been actually able to start capturing that data. And I'm still not 100% sure what to use it for,
Yeah, well, and I hate to say it, guilty as charged. But think about it this way: had you started to, because your butt is on the line, it's your butt as the owner of the small business, had you systematically been tracking that maybe 13 years ago instead of only 3 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, you would have been on a totally different growth trajectory as opposed to what you're on now.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
There were times we tracked it really well, and then times we didn't. But the other thing, I kind of judge consumer behavior by what I do, because I'm online a lot. So sometimes I'll go to a social media site and I will buy something directly from the social media site without going through the website. Is there a way to measure that?
Yeah, again, small business, large businesses, absolutely. And they are measuring it, and they are doing it to the nth degree. And those that are really successful online are really know exactly how to measure it, and continue to improve how they're measuring that. For successful small businesses, I would venture to say that they are absolutely doing that. For those businesses that are kind of marginal, not succeeding, maybe succeeding, they're probably not. And that to me is probably how you determine whether they're successful. I have to know what caused that consumer to buy that on my social media. And if I don't know, then how do I know how to spend my marketing dollars tomorrow or the next week or the next month? I have to know that.
That's
Right. And the tools are there now where you can actually figure
Yeah.
that out. It used to be just kind of intuitive, right? But now
The tools are there. You can do so much as a small business. The tools are there. It's really as the business owner seeing that their future of their business is on the line if they can start measuring what works today. If they don't measure, if you don't measure, then how do you know it's working? And there's a whole bunch of different quotes that you can find online about that. As the small business owner, you have to measure. They're measuring what they deliver. When they deliver something, they're measuring the quality, they're measuring the number of shipments that go out. They're measuring that, but they have to start measuring that input in terms of what's driving their business. And if they don't, then their success is on the line.
Well, that's true. And I think for a small business, Google Analytics is pretty powerful. Now, I keep getting these messages when I go in that I have to learn Google Analytics 4. And I started taking a tutorial, but it was extremely basic. So I think I was taking the wrong one. But one of my goals for the next quarter is to really dig into Google Analytics and really understand how it works, because there are a lot of different things that it measures. So what would you tell a small business owner? Like, they probably should hook up Google Analytics 4 and understand it as much as they can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at a very high level, it's visits and engagement. Then the next thing is potentially geographic sources. One of the things that you'll find as a small business, and this is one of my problems, I got 50% of my clicks are coming from Russia. I mean,
Right.
there's no question that those are wrong. Get rid of those things. Then you have what are called bounces, where the visitor comes on and then leaves right away. Well, if you got them there, if they actually legitimately got there and you couldn't get them to do one click, then that means that you got to improve your website. That right there is a pretty good learning and a pretty good thing to work on. And then lastly, if you did different marketing activities, you did some social, you bought some Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads or whatever it happens to be, you start tracking how many leads came off of that. Right. And that right there will be a big help as you move forward. But the other thing, though, is not just to do it once in a while. You have to do it consistently. You have to look at it on a consistent basis, because it's like you got to pay the rent, you got to get the heat, you got to buy the air conditioning, you got to measure every day and every week and every month.
And I just want to jump in here and point to something that you said earlier, Guy, and that people are tracking their inventory and they're tracking other activities, their production. And really, that data management piece is critical for most businesses, right? As an entrepreneur, you really got to have a handle on your numbers so you know what's going on. And the bigger your company gets, the more important having a handle on those numbers is. And the numbers don't lie. You can fool yourself into thinking you're doing great, but if the numbers tell a different story, then you have to make some changes. And that's really part of the role of the CEO. I think there's certainly a lot to be said about vision and culture and all that, but part of it is just paying attention to the numbers and stepping in and fixing things when something needs to be fixed before the whole ship sinks, right? So,
yeah, and that's exactly what's in my book, Post-COVID Marketing Machine, is that I used to make the analogy, and just like you kind of did, is the production manager tracks everything they do and they are there to minimize error. Finance, they deliver the numbers, and but marketing and most small businesses don't do that. And so then you made a point, well, this is how I can see my business grow. No. This is what causes the business to grow. is tracking marketing, because without marketing and without selling, of course, but without marketing, you are not going to be able to grow your business consistently. And so if you want to grow your business consistently, if you are a small business, you have to start measuring and tracking what you do and what the results are of those actions.
That's great. So we have to take a commercial break, but we'll be back with more Passage to Profit and more words of wisdom from Guy Powell right after this commercial message.
Welcome back, listeners. You're listening to Passage to Profit, Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
Sometimes a bumpy road,
Our
but a road nonetheless.
and our special guest, Guy Powell, author of The Post-COVID Marketing Machine. And we have been talking about what you should do with your marketing. We have our media maven, Kenya Gibson, here with us. And we'd like to turn the stage over to her to ask Guy a question.
Well, thank you, Richard and Elizabeth. So, Guy, obviously there's a post-COVID marketing machine because there have been behavioral changes in consumers. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those changes have been?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Kenya. I outline three changes in the book. The first one is the consumer purchase behavior. I remember distinctly sitting here at my desk and I said, oh man, I need to buy something in a UPS. And it was right in the middle of COVID. I get up, I zoom out, I get in the car and I'm driving down the street and I go, wait a minute, what am I doing? Why am I going? Why am I driving? I turn around, I come back home, I go on Amazon and I buy it. So the purchase behavior, the first instinct in my mind was, well, I got to go look and see what's in the store, get my fingers on it. And I said, well, what am I wasting my time for doing that for? I'll just look online. And I went to Amazon and I bought it. That right there is an example of how consumer purchase behavior has changed. Now, I will admit that change was already in place. So for Gen Y and Gen Z, that change has already been taking place. Gen X, a little less. And then, of course, boomers, a lot less. Well, now boomers now know how to buy things online. And so they are going to the stores a lot less. Then the second thing is consumer media consumption behavior. So purchase behavior, now media consumption. So now we're no longer watching TV. We're no longer watching, or consuming entertainment and media the way we used to. We're now watching TV on our iPad. We're watching it on our phone. We're watching it on a smart TV. We're binge watching. We're doing it totally differently. And that right there meant that the marketers had to respond to be able to say, well, if they're not watching The Bachelor or something like that, or they're not watching a football game or a baseball game, we have to go find out where they are. And we have to figure out a way to get our messages in front of them. And then the last thing is consumer media response behavior. And what I mean by that is, and you've probably seen it, quite often the ads on TV nowadays have QR codes. So I can take my phone and take a picture of the QR code and then bang, I'm right there on the website. And so we've started to do that when we're watching TV or a movie or whatever, a QR code, bang, let's see what's going on. And of course I'm a nerd, so I do it just to test it out. And so that's changed. But also what's changed is as soon as you see an ad, you go to your laptop, you got your laptop right there. You got your iPad, you start typing in the website or you type in the brand name and then you're off to the races in terms of, trying to find out more information. And that consumer media response behavior is the third big piece that has changed pre-COVID versus now post-COVID.
Wow, that's really fascinating. And the changes have been happening so rapidly anyway that really this is a never ending area of attention, right? And just going to network meetings and shaking hands, and relying on relationships is really less important now than paying attention to what's going on in the digital world, right? And how can smaller businesses take advantage of some of these concepts that you just discussed?
Sure. Well, what's interesting is I've seen quite a few small businesses advertising on TV. And I've been amazed at how many are actually doing that. You know, you'll see an HVAC company or a plumber or whatever. They're a small chain. I would consider them small business, not a micro business. And here they are, they're advertising. And you know, so I'm pretty surprised at that. The other thing that's happened is the way that you buy media. One of our clients is a big museum, and I would consider them as well a small business. And they are now in the digital realm. They are using some really fascinating what's called geolocation based advertising. So they are advertising based on where that cell phone is and where it goes to that group of individuals that, you know, that are like that person there. And so if an individual crosses the threshold and goes to one of the competing museums in the city, they know that, and then they'll advertise to that person. So it's pretty fascinating how they've now taken this new technology, and which has really been, you know, now become kind of commonplace since post-COVID, and really use that to optimize their advertising.
Yeah, I once had someone suggest to me, we do a lot of work in the life sciences area, and we're close to several large pharmaceutical companies in New Jersey, and the technology is possible that we could figure out who the employees are just by geo-tracking them as they go into work. This was before COVID. They go into work, and then we could conceivably have come up with an advertising campaign that is, you know, directly responsive to those people in that industry, just based on their geographical
Yep.
location. And we never did that, but I always thought the possibility of doing that was just fascinating. Right?
Yeah, and you can also, not only that, you can also get their position in the company. So if you're interested in the actual scientist as opposed to, you know, the marketing or sales guys, you want to maybe target the science guys. And so you would be, you can target them, number one. And number two, you'd be also willing to pay more to be able to target that very specific person with the message that you think might be the best for, you know, for winning them over.
Well, based on this, what is your opinion about Google pay-per-click ads now?
Well, my lens is, of course, from a larger business. And be honest with you, what we've found is that what I call paid social. So that's LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and now coming, you know, with TikTok and some of the other ones. The ROI generally for our larger clients is much better on paid social than it is on paid digital, which would be the Google pay-per-click.
Oh, that's
Wow.
really interesting. So that's changed a lot, because I remember 16 years ago, I mean, I did the Google pay-per-click ads myself because it was easier back then, but now we have somebody else doing it for us. But we did a Facebook ad with a specific piece of content, and we put the content on our website homepage as a blog, and we had 100% bounce rate. So what do you think?
We had a lot of visits.
We had a lot of visits. People went and looked at that content, but they didn't go further into the site. Were we doing top of the funnel? Were we like too broad of an audience, not a targeted audience, or is our website just not leading people where they need to go?
Well, probably a combination of both. It could be that the website was not giving, you know, the answer that somebody was looking for. But also with Facebook, and I can't remember if Twitter does it, Facebook has the ability to segment their advertising from top of funnel, mid funnel, and bottom of funnel. And so with that, then you can determine what you're trying to do. So top of funnel for folks as an education thing would be more about driving awareness. Hey, we exist, we're here, we do some really cool stuff in the legal patent area. Middle of funnel is to say, wow, if I had a problem with patents, then yeah, I would probably want to choose this company versus that company. They offer exactly what I want. And then the bottom of the funnel is, hey, I need a patent attorney. Who do I look for? And now I'm ready to choose right now. So my purchase intent right there is very high. So, you know, it depends on what you're trying to do as to whether you're trying to just get awareness or trying to build the brand, or whether you're trying to get them to convert.
That's interesting. And Facebook advertising has become more complex, right? Because you need to be aware of these kinds of options and understand how to implement them for sure. Kenya, do you have any more thoughts or comments on what you're hearing? You're obviously highly skilled in the areas of marketing. So What are your thoughts here?
Well, thank you for that. I know a couple things, but more curiously, I'm just wanting to know whether you think the consumer buying cycle has altered or changed from its traditional model.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a shortening of that cycle, and like a car, it used to be a 6-month purchase cycle. Now it's typically less than 30 to 45 days. So it really has shifted in a big way. So yes, absolutely. So even for the larger goods, certainly for the cheap stuff or the low consideration items, then it's gotten much shorter.
So people are making decisions quicker and faster. And I guess I have one follow-up question to that. As a marketer, what should you be doing to combat that change?
Well, first of all, buy my book. But I'm sorry, that's a dirty plug. It's a shameless plug. But yeah, so I mean, if they are watching and tracking the right kind of data, then in their marketing funnel, so we talked about top, middle, and bottom of the funnel, if they are tracking that data today, then they will be able to start to see those changes. And so when did that first click come, or when they first actually did something, to when that actually led to a sale? And so that tracking it's ugly. It's no fun. There is no such thing as a free lunch, but you got to do it. So tracking and data is critical.
Do you think makes sense for smaller businesses to outsource this kind of activity, especially if they're not a strong numbers person? Does that make more sense than trying to understand the software and the marketing piece themselves?
Yeah, I think for a small business, and again, it depends on how small, if you want to grow and you want to grow consistently, then you need to measure and analyze consistently. And generally, the outside service providers are much better at trying to do that, as opposed to you trying to learn it and doing it yourself. If you just want to hobble along and go up and go down, then then you don't have to worry about tracking. Just continue like you're doing, and be like Einstein. You just bang your head on the wall until something changes. But yes, I would definitely recommend measuring and doing the analyzing outside the company, because then you will get a consistent report and you'll get a consistent understanding. Plus, you'll get that extra knowledge, that they have in terms of interpreting. It'll be wildly helpful for the company to learn where they can really get that extra ounce of income, and then really try and accelerate their growth.
So Guy, can you track from a Facebook ad all the way through to a phone call? Can you put a tag on that ad that somehow that phone call came from that ad?
Well, in many cases, the difference is whether you want to use the word track or whether you want to use the word measure. In most cases, you can't say that this click here led to that phone call. But what the science is, though, is, let's say I do a television ad, and you can't really track who saw that ad. So I do a television ad on Friday, and my website goes crazy on Saturday. So all of a sudden, I see a whole bunch of activity on Saturday, and then Sunday it starts to decline, and then Monday it's all gone. So as a smart marketer and a smart businessman, you would say, wow, I did that ad on Friday, and I got all of this traffic on Saturday and a little more on Sunday. So it must be that those two are connected. So that's kind of a statistical approach to being able to say that ad generated all of those follow-on clicks. So in a similar way, I send out an email or I send out a direct mail. I'll start to see more traffic coming to my site, and then you can say, well, that must be coming from those activities. The last one is, though, you can also build in some very specific tracking components, and that's why those QR codes are kind of good, because then I can see I saw the ad, I clicked on that QR code, and I went directly to that link that was being added, that was being advertised at the time. You know how you have companies, they put out 800 numbers, and you'll get an 800 number, this one day and another one another day, and you'll be able to track which one was followed. Well, with these QR codes, I can now track exactly who saw that QR code. I could put it up on a billboard. I could put it in a direct mail. I could put it in anything, track that QR code, and know exactly where that marketing activity took place, and then track it over to the link.
I have one more question for you, and this is really in the weeds. Sorry. But I was looking at our Google page on Google Maps for Gearhart Law because I wanted to get the link to get reviews. And I saw that they have a feature, and I don't know when this is added, where you can post updates to your Google Maps listing. Are you familiar with that? I was just curious, is that worth pursuing? I did post one update, but is that worth pursuing and posting updates there?
Well, what I would do is, I can't answer that for a specific case, but what I would do is, test it, is post the update, do it a couple times, and then stop doing it and see if there's a difference. And that's, by the way, if you remember in high school and maybe in elementary school, we did experiments. That's called experimental design. Do an experiment, run a test, and then have your tracking mechanism in place to be able to see if there was a difference in response based on what you did. And so then instead of saying that one particular, because I hate to say it, I mean, Facebook and Google, they've got hundreds of different things that you can do. Right. So if you want to be smart about it, is test it and then, learn from that test and then implement it further.
And then Google Analytics will tell you that it came from maps, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Guy Powell, everyone, who is obviously knows his way around digital marketing and has a lot of really great advice about how to move your business forward. And we really appreciate your comments. We have to take a commercial break, Guy, but we hope that you'll stay with us and help us with the rest of the show. We have another couple of fantastic presenters, Christian Seale and Niki Brown, coming up, and they'll be on right after this commercial break. Welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Our special guest, Guy Powell, who is a founder of ProRelevant, and author of the book, The Post-COVID Marketing Machine. And if you missed his thoughts, you can hear them on our podcast. Go anywhere where you get your podcasts and look for the Passage to Profit show, and you'll be able to listen to this several times and absorb all of that. Really,
I think I'm going to read the book too.
And read the book too, for sure. But now it is time for Power Move, and Kenya, who is making power moves today?
So for Power Move today, we're going to talk about a young entrepreneur by the name of Alexander Wang. He's the new youngest self-made billionaire, according to Forbes. He's 25 years old. He dropped out of college at 19 to start up a company called Scale AI. And he's working with the Air Force, the Army, General Motors, Flexport to unlock their data potential and help companies amplify their artificial intelligence. So he's our power move for today.
Good for him. That fits right in with what Guy was just saying about being able to target your customers and also measure the data. The data is the most important thing, right?
Is he like some sort of super genius that is able to leap tall buildings in a single bound and analyze terabytes of information?
Well, he's pretty amazing. I mean, he told his parents he was only going to do this for one summer, and he never went back to school. So it worked out for him. And what's interesting is that his technology helps companies analyze satellite images much faster than human analysts. So for the military, it's brilliant, right? And then it works for all different types of other industries as well.
Wow, that's well, congratulations to him.
Yeah, we need that.
And we'd love to have another sponsor on Passage to Profit. So if you're listening, please give us a call. But kudos to him. And now it's time for Fireside, or Elizabeth's project.
My startup. I'm going to change the name because for a number of different reasons, but
to protect the innocent, for sure.
who haven't heard this before, my startup is an online video directory of small businesses and other people too, if they choose to be on it. And I developed a business method. There's a number of different pieces. Richard contributed. So I drafted a provisional patent application for it almost a year ago. And now I have to convert that to a utility application before the year is up. And that is what I have been working on lately, as well as our website.
So don't try this at home,
Gearhart
folks.
Law.
She is a registered patent agent with
Right.
a PhD in chemistry. So she knows what she's doing for sure.
Well, kind of. But so I'm frantically finishing drafting the patent application. But I mentioned this last week too. Normally we would send the drawings or figures. It's mostly flow charts, but there are a couple that aren't, to a draftsman to do who has special software. But if you are able to do this yourself, you can do it in Canva. Canva has almost everything you need. And I've been doing all of my figures, flow charts, as well as figures that show representations of humans, etc., in Canva. And it's really powerful, and it's made it easier for me because I can do it at midnight, and I'm not going to be doing it the midnight before the day it's due, I hope.
Right. And there is a universe of do-it-yourself patent filers out there, and I would always recommend that whatever gets filed gets at least reviewed by an intellectual property lawyer. But if you decide to do the drawings yourself, this makes it so much easier, because it used to be that you needed to use computer-aided design software or CAD software, and learning that is not easy. But learning Canva is very easy. So
Right.
it's definitely a great tool.
Right. But you have to know the rules of the patent office to be able to do your figures.
Right.
So
I mean, like I said,
you can't just go do it. You have to know what the rules are. But and I do have patent attorneys that will review this for me before it's filed.
yes, for
Well, your name is on it too.
yes. So
Anyway, enough of
you're
that.
in a privileged position when it comes to this.
Enough
project.
about that. As we get older, we get many aches and pains, and surgery is always a scary thought. So Christian Seale with Vitruvia has a method for helping you relieve your aches and pains without surgery. So Christian, I am very excited to hear about this. Please tell us all about it.
Well, thank you guys for having me on this show, and I love all the work you're putting out into the universe and all the good energy. So thank you. So maybe I'll just give a little bit of background. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV or Passage to Profit, but I am a healthcare entrepreneur and investor. So let me just maybe take 30 seconds on how I got into this, and I'll tell you about Vitruvia. Wasn't trained as an MD, didn't really have a background in healthcare. Did an MBA and undergrad degree in economics, and then lived in the country of Colombia and Ecuador for about 4 years. And when I was down there, I was hospitalized with 2 parasites, had a temperature of 104, spent 24 hours in the emergency room, and closest thing that I pretty much had to life or death. And I got a bill for $53. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time, but 4 years later, I dislocated my pinky trying to catch a forehand tennis ball, and went to the ER, and plastic surgeon came and ended up getting a bill for $17,300. And I said, something's wrong here with healthcare. And that was kind of a funny story. Not so funny. My dad is now blind in one eye because of a botched cataract surgery because of a transcription error. And then my grandmother passed away from a misdiagnosis of ovarian cancer. So I basically took the view, we spend $4 trillion in healthcare, about $1 trillion is waste. Some of that, as you mentioned, has to do with unnecessary surgeries. And I just want to commit my life to help transform health and lives. So I invested in about 30 companies. We sold 7, and it's kind of great to help people, but it wasn't really touching the patient. And so when 5 years ago, an anesthesiologist who I'd previously backed as an investor came to me and said, "Hey, we can transform tissue from the inside out." I had no idea what that meant, but I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, and he suggests to jump on a trampoline, which I did. And anyway, I fell off and I sprained both my wrists. And so what did I do? I go to the orthopedic. What do they tell you to do? They tell you to rest and ice and compression and put you in these braces. So I was in these braces for, call it 3 months, and doing push-ups on my knuckles. And long story short, the anesthesiologist treated me, and I was able to get out of the braces and do push-ups normally in 3 days. And so, being an investor, I kind of realized that this was something that needed to get out to the world. And so we started Vitruvia about 5 years ago, and treat these high performance athletes that use their body to make money, and now trying to get it to the rest of the world.
So the obvious question is, how do you do it?
So there's this layer that we recently discovered in 2018 called the interstitium. And so a lot of Western medicine is trained on cadavers. And so what happens when we die, this highway, if you will, the interstitium evaporates. And so it's not something that's typically trained in Western medicine. You might hear of the fascia, we get myofascial massages, or the Theraguns are really, kind of in vogue. So what we do is we use ultrasound to look at this interstitial or connective tissue layer to see where there may be damages or scarring from injury, from surgery, from just bad posture, our lifestyles. We sit in front of the screen a lot. And if there is some type of injury or damage to the tissue, these board certified anesthesiologists will go in and restore the tissue back to what it should be. So I always like to say scar tissue looks like a kind of picket fence. The tissue doesn't move, it's not pliable. And they do a very simple, non-invasive procedure, or minimally invasive, to bring it back to a very organized layer cake, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. I have had a lot of injuries over my rather mediocre sports career. And I did have some shoulder problems, went to a physical therapist. He said, well, what you have to do is break up the scar tissue in your shoulder. And he did some things with his hand. And to his credit, he made it feel better. So the pain was actually from the scar tissue. And I'd had it for a long time. So I think that what you're onto is really interesting here.
Right. So Christian, I have a question for you. If I wanted to have this done, or if Richard wanted to have it done, where could he go get this done?
So we're currently in Miami, New York, and Los Angeles. We're in the process of bringing it nationwide. Two ways. One, since a lot of Western medicine has not really looked at this part of the body, they know maybe with their hands, the PT, that there is scar tissue there. But if you go get an X-ray or an MRI, you don't necessarily see this. So we're giving the ultrasound and the technology that we built to other practitioners so they can do a better job of, helping reconcile what you're feeling with what they see on ultrasound. And then we're training other practitioners across the nation as well.
So would we go on the Vitruvia website and say like locations, look for locations, and then find a place where we could go get this done?
Yeah, so Vitruvia website can book a first phone assessment and a few intake questions. There's certain things that we can't help with, and so unfortunately, if one has those, we're not eligible for treatment, and then would come in for an in-person consultation. And then if it's something that we can help with, or the doctors think that they can help with, they would prescribe a treatment plan.
So one further question before we turn this over to our other panelists for other questions, and that is, what is the universe of ailments that can be treated with your approach?
So it's broad because this connective tissue layer goes from head to toe. But you think about kind of your big areas: neck, shoulder, hips, knees, ankles, Achilles. Any place where there is soft tissue that may have been injured or scarred. And so we see a lot of people, unfortunately, that come to us after they've tried everything. They've tried surgery, they've tried all their alternative means, they've done PT for a long time, or myofascial massage. We're looking to educate more people to say that, hey, before you maybe do a surgery, before you do something that's more invasive, maybe try this.
Okay, but it's mostly injuries to the skeletal system, to the muscles, those kinds of things. That's ligaments. Those are the things that your technique can help with. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if there's no broken bone on the X-ray, and if the MRI is not definitive and showing anything, those are typically things that we can help with. And so any kind of musculoskeletal related issues.
Okay, great. Kenya, you're a worker outer. You lead a lot of fitness classes. So
well, thank God I've not gotten hurt.
Oh,
but
lucky you.
Yeah, for sure. So I just curious about the cost, because I know you were talking a little about costs earlier. What does something like this cost, and does insurance cover this? And I'm going to guess I know the answer, but I'll let you go.
So yeah, it's and it's a really unfortunate thing in our current system where they say it takes about 7 to 10 years to get leading edge science into the reimbursement pathway. And so unfortunately, this is cash pay currently. We do take health savings accounts, which are employer sponsored. And so we are in the process of getting this reimbursed. It's not currently. Each person's very unique. So if you're familiar with kind of PRP or stem cells, it's kind of in line with that cost. So I hate to kind of say one thing, because we have people that come in and a professional athlete spends 6 figures, or we have somebody that spends 5 figures or 4 figures, and so it's hard to give kind of a range. It's really based off the ailment, but it's currently a cash pay procedure.
Well, along those lines, can you use this instead of a facelift?
It's funny you say
You're
that.
not asking for yourself.
For a friend,
You don't
yes,
need
asking
one.
for a friend.
So there's some people that use the same kind of technique for, Botox is something that will freeze, kind of a skin wrinkle. And we've done some things where you break up the scar tissue below the wrinkle, and then, just by doing that, the wrinkle will go away. But we're really laser focused on helping people with pain and then improving mobility. But yeah, I think it is something, in the future that could be used for cosmetic purposes.
Well, looking old is emotionally painful for some people. but Guy, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, absolutely. A handful of friends of mine have had back surgery, and I'm wondering, and some of them didn't turn out very well. I mean, just, they're hobbled now, and it's really a shame. So would what you're offering be maybe a better first step to see if that could help their backs before they go in under the knife?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've helped a lot of people that have had, back surgeries, fusions, and it's unfortunate people come to us after, 2, 3, 4 failed surgeries. And so, I would say what we offer, as well as a plethora of other things, physical therapy, myofascial massage, realigning yourself. I think there's many things that one should do, and surgery is 100% necessary in many cases, but there's many things, including us, that one could do beforehand for sure.
So do you give multiple injury discounts if somebody walks in and they have a bad back and a bad shoulder and a bad knee and a bad foot?
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of, we think of the body as kind of everything's connected. And so the name Vitruvia comes from the Vitruvian Man, which is, this really symmetrical drawing that Leonardo da Vinci did. And so if something's out of alignment somewhere, it probably means there's something else out of alignment. And so we have a lot of folks that come to us for, as an example, a shoulder. We help the shoulder, they feel better. And they're like, well, I need the other shoulder done, or then I need my right ankle done, because these fascial planes, we have 6 of these anatomy trains, you call them, they connect us from head to toe. And so when something's kind of off, it can result in something else being off. And what we are is very much like the catalyst, if you will. So we are able to give you a time frame where you can go ahead and then do yoga or do Pilates or PT or stretch or do something that you weren't able to do before, to really nudge the body to heal itself.
So I'm looking at this at the notes that we have, and it says that use an ultrasound imaging software, Scar Map. So do you put somebody in an ultrasound machine and look at the entire body and then figure it out, or do you just look at the place that has the scar tissue?
So we do look across the full body, but the machine that we use is just a handheld machine.
Okay.
And so we started doing this in people's homes. We're going to do it in the workplace as well. And so we image the area, and then we're able to tell if the tissue is healthy or pliable or not. But we do have protocols to go across the full body, particularly for those sports athletes and teams that are looking at increasing performance.
So what would a typical diagnosis and treatment situation look like if somebody were to say, all right, I'm going to hire you? What are the steps that they would go through First of all, in the diagnostic stage, and then what would happen in the treatment phase?
Sure. So the first step is, 15, 20-minute phone call to understand the history, see if this is something, example, if you have a broken bone, that's not something we're able to help. If you have a fully torn, call it ACL, that's not something we're able to help. So a little bit of background information before you take the step to come into the office. And then come in the office, meet with one of our board certified anesthesiologists, and they'll do a patient history. They'll do a movement exam, see how you're moving in different planes. And then they'll do the ultrasound on the area where you have an issue, and then some other areas as well. And if the ultrasound shows some type of scarred and damaged tissue in the area that you're complaining, that's usually a good sign that the treatment could be efficacious. And so then they'll prescribe a treatment plan. Typically it's 1, 2, 3 sessions, depending on how long the issues had there. And then it's a very simple outpatient procedure. We have NFL athletes that fly in on Saturday and they play on Sunday, or we have, folks that get treated in the morning and they play golf. This isn't like, you have to be out of work for 6 weeks type of thing with surgery. Use a little bit of lidocaine to numb up the area. And then you can almost think about it as acupuncture. It's much more involved than that, but kind of a good way to think about it, using the ultrasound and then specialized needles going in and helping to repair your tissue.
So how does that work? So you put needles in the area that is injured and painful, and do you inject something there, or is it just simply inserting the needles and that breaks up the scar tissue? What happens when they're being treated?
So you're talking about your shoulder, and your physical therapist is using his hands to break up the scar tissue and bring the tissue back. That works really, really well in many cases. And a lot of folks, we say, hey, why don't you try PT first? There are issues that you can't get from the outside in. And so the procedure is really focused on using the ultrasound to guide the needles to the point where they need to get, and really bringing the tissue back to that really organized layer cake. And so I use this analogy, and fracking is something that's controversial, but as you think about using hydrostatic pressure that breaks things, that's really what the procedure is doing. And then using a agent to ensure that those channels, if you will, stay open and the tissue is pliable and able to move.
Oh, that sounds like, and it's a like 1-day procedure. That sounds really amazing technology. So Kenya, did you have another comment or question?
Yeah. How long do the results last? Is it permanent?
So we have 5 years of data, and I don't think anything's permanent. I think the only constant to change, the only constant in life is change. But we have folks that have not come back to us. We typically see folks that are the athletes or use their body a lot, every year to 2. What we typically say is, if you're able to keep yourself in alignment thereafter, and we refer out to physical therapists or to body mechanic specialists, then you probably don't have to come back and see us. If you're doing the same movement over and over and over again that caused what the problem was, you may have to come back and see us.
Got it.
Guy, did you have a question? Last question, I think.
Yeah, sure. How about what is it, carpal tunnel? So can that help with that? Because my wife, she's suffering through that right now.
Yeah, we've helped a lot of people that have wrist issues. Again, a lot of this comes down to if the ultrasound shows something that the tissue is scarred and damaged that we can help with. We typically like to do our own analysis, or the doctors do. And so many times when one person comes in, they were told that they had one thing, and what we see on ultrasound is something else. So always like to be cautious to say we could help, we couldn't. We can't help wrists, but really the ultrasound is the kind of determination if we can help or not.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, we have to end this segment, but before we do, what is your website?
It's Vitruvia, Vitruvia.co, not com.co.
Okay, perfect. So listeners, if you have more questions, go to the website, and I'm sure there's a lot of information there. This has been fascinating. Thank you. So now
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So now we're moving from physical health to emotional health with Niki Brown with Ignite Summit, and that's ignitesummit.org. So she's the founder and host. It's a 3-day seminar for women, November 10th to 12th at Chase Center in Wilmington, Delaware. Niki, tell us what you're going to be doing.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This has just been a fantastic experience. I love anytime I get an opportunity to talk about women's empowerment. We are going to be at the Chase Center in Wilmington, Delaware. This is actually our 9th kind of time or year doing it. It started off, it's an outgrowth of my background. I'm a former therapist, although I don't know that you can ever be a former therapist because my friends will call me for free
You're
therapy.
not analyzing me, I hope.
I've analyzed all of y'all this entire.
Beyond hope.
I actually ran a counseling practice for 10 years. And when my husband and my family packed up and moved, I really kind of switched over to coaching, but also just thinking through all the women. I started off as a master's level therapist doing marriage and family. And so I did all the premarital counseling and all that drama. And somehow or another through the years, more women just started coming to me, judges and lawyers and doctors and pastors and ministers and year after year. And you know what's interesting? As I was sitting talking to them, it was like I was talking to myself. And somewhere or another, I started really feeling and hearing the heartbeat of women. And, I come from the church world. So at that same time, I was, a leader in my church and I was running events there. But as the time progressed, my brand, just started to kind of build in the sense of the people who came to me the most, the people who wanted to hear from me the most were women. And so I started speaking and traveling and going across the country, doing women's conferences, et cetera. And so when I moved and I left the counseling department, the practice that I was running, I really wanted to see a blend between spirituality and practicality. I really wanted to see a blend between spirituality and psychology. So many times in the church world, and I am a very spiritual, strong, faith foundation person. However, some of the weaknesses in the church is you come in, you have depression, whatever. They're like, give it to Jesus. You're like, I did. And I still have depression.
And he gave it right back to me.
And he gave it back to me. And especially with the African-American world and church, we're just coming into, and I'm sure Kenya can speak to this, we're just being okay with sharing our issues, our problems, going to counseling, going to coaching, understanding that it's okay. And so I really wanted to create a space where women of faith could come, but also women who are coming from different backgrounds can talk to women in a 360-degree model. So not just talking about our souls, but our mind, our bodies, our businesses, our finances, our relationships, because that's where we have the most emotional crazy going on. And that's what Ignite turned into. We started with a 1 day, half a day breakfast. I was praying for just 50 women to show up, and we ended up with over 150, and that was back in 2014. And it has just grown from a 1 day, half a day breakfast to a 3 day, I call it a movement. And so we have right now over 25 workshop speakers in 4 or 5 different tracks. They're going to be talking about their businesses, finances. We have a 30 under 30 group that's coming where we're going to be empowering them in entrepreneurism and relationships. We're doing a teen summit this year. We started it last year in the midst of coming off of COVID, and it was a hit. And we also have pastors and leaders and international speakers and coaches. We actually do coaching groups in the afternoon. And so it's just really exciting to see the work that I did. I just brought it all in from years ago, from speaking and teaching, but also therapy and sitting hour after hour on the couch with women crying and listening to them talk about incest and their spouses leaving them and the loneliness and the pain, and bringing all of that together in one place for women to be ignited for their purpose and their passion. And so we've just watched women grow. We've watched, different things take place. And so we're excited. It's going to be November the 10th through the 12th. The tickets are only $75.
Wow.
Y'all pray for me, because
Yeah. So are you getting people from all over the world? It sounds like you would. And Wilmington,
Well,
Delaware is kind of nice place to have it.
well, that's the goal. Right now, we are starting to see pockets of women coming. We have a group that comes from Chicago. We have a group that comes from New York. Again, even though I moved, I came back to New Jersey every year, or the Jersey area, kind of the tri-state area, because that's where my base of operation was. All the women who have followed me, I worked with women that I've spoken, the workshops and stuff like that I've done. That really was my base of operations. And so every year we kind of start moving. I'm trying to move them down south. Get them down here.
Well, I want to hand this over to Kenya in a minute, but I do have a question. Do you find that the women that come to this form some very powerful relationships before they leave?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I used to hate about conferences is that you work from morning all the way till evening. You don't remember what you heard. You don't know who you met. So we institute a huge block of time, especially on one day, just to connect, to go eat, take a nap, because we don't take naps.
I do.
We really incorporate a lot of networking and things like that. And I'm blessed to have had fantastic partners and sponsors, small business owners, but also private paying women who came to me and said to me, I just want to support this. How much can I give? And so these are people that don't want anything back. And then we also have small business owners who sponsor us. And that's the only reason why we're able to do a $75 ticket for 3 days. Every year I'm praying like, come on, Jesus, but these, just keeping it real. But it has just grown to where, we're now able to fit into, a Chase Center. And so every year I'm taking a leap of faith, taking a risk, because, this is my organization. It's coming from oftentimes private donations. And so every year, and we are a nonprofit, and every year I just rely on the generosity, the excitement, and the passion of women to say, I want to be a part. I really want to help.
Yeah, Kenya.
Well, I think this is wonderful. I was actually just having this conversation with Charlemagne the other day about just like the stigma of mental health resources in the church, and like
Yes.
how it just there's so many misconceptions, especially in communities of color.
Yes.
In regards to what you're doing and leading these conversations, have you ever thought of creating a curriculum that could potentially educate leaders, ministers, community groups to really be able to lead these conversations in the right way?
No, but I would love for you to help me. That would be a fantastic idea. When I ran the counseling department, it was an offshoot of our church. My former pastor had a CDC, put out in the community, and, I had to hire all the counselors and everything like that. And it was a slow hustle, really trying to convince people that you can trust us. Everybody here has a degree, a license. This isn't, I hate to say this, but this isn't, Sister Junebug on the front row that's saying, come on in the back, I'm gonna tell you what you need to do and give you something to eat from it. No, we are really experienced, and we really can help you, and we're going to tell you to take your medication, and so really being able to bridge that into the church has really been a slow growth. And I have, Kenya, I actually have gone to different churches and done trainings. I've never put it within a booklet, just haven't had the time, but I have actually trained several churches in what to do, thinking through ethical issues and things such as that.
What are some of the biggest challenges that women raise when they come to your event?
The conference, what we're hearing now, and it's so great, that Guy is talking about this whole after COVID. We're talking through consumerism and what's happening there, but we're seeing such a shift in the marketplace with people. The COVID caused all of us to take a stop and say, okay, this is not my passion. This is not what I want to do anymore. And, if we all know this, people were struggling to get people to go back to work. Their jobs, down the street at Kentucky, you couldn't get nobody to come and work at all. Why? Because people took a moment to stop and say, what am I doing? And I think the thing I've heard through all my counseling practice, as well as this, especially for women, is we literally infuse ourselves into roles and models that are expected of us, right? We get into places where people say we should be, and no one ever stops to ask us, and we don't stop to ask ourselves, what do I want, right? We talk about what I should do, what people told me I should do. Well, I got a degree in this and I spend all this money, but it's not in alignment. And so what I hear the most and what people come to Ignite is to literally get back into alignment with either what they said they wanted to do in January and it is now November and you have done nothing, or there's just this silent unrest within you where you can't sleep, you're frustrated, you're making great money, yet you're depressed, you hate your job, and you have literally no idea of what to do next. Ignite is the place where women come to really get them thinking and stirring up their passion and making it okay. It's okay to do what you want. It's okay to think about you. And oftentimes we don't have that space.
Oh, that's wonderful. Guy, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I'm incredibly impressed, and I think you're right. I think quite often the mental health issues are ignored or swept under the rug, and there's so much that people need, and to really help them to get out of their rut. And what you're doing, I can only applaud. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I have a question for you, Niki.
Mm-hmm.
So the last day of the conference, the last hour of the conference, the women are leaving. What are they saying to you as they're leaving?
That this has been life-changing. And it's so humbling because, all year we're working and we're praying and we're doing everything we can, because that's our goal. We want people to feel activated. And then what we hear, and this is part of, I think, my brand of just empowering people, is I don't want you just to come to the conference and say, this was wonderful, I got great information. I want you to do something on Monday. Oftentimes we go to these conferences and it's great, but what are you going to do? And so that's what I hear women saying. I'm going to write the book. I'm going to get this business started. And that's what it is. It's one of those events where it's really designed. Okay, it's the end of the year. You have 1 month left. You still have time to do something and make sure it's in alignment with what you're called to do and what you were born to do.
Oh, wow. That sounds so powerful. Unfortunately, we have to quit talking. I could talk to you all day.
But if anybody's starting a new business and they need intellectual property advice, you know somebody now.
I sure do. Well, actually, David is one of the ones who got me licensed. He got us registered, trademarked, and he has just been amazing. I absolutely love him to death. I had to put kudos. He didn't pay me to do this, but I had to give him kudos today.
Well, we'll be sure to pass that along.
Once again, you can find out more at ignitesummit.org. So don't go to .com, go to .org. And if you want to see Niki's website, it's nikibrown.org, NIKI Brown.org. And we're coming to the end of the show. If you missed any of it, you can find the podcast anywhere you find a podcast. If you want to see what we all look like, go to YouTube. And we will be back after these messages to wrap up the show. You're listening to Passage to Profit, Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. And our special guest today, Guy Powell.
Welcome back, everybody, to Passage to Profit. Elizabeth and I were just kind of confused about who was going to bring us back to get the show started again. So I just took the leap and went for it. So
I'd like to talk.
Now it's time for Elizabeth's question.
So we have instituted a group discussion and everybody gets to answer the same question. We're going to ask Guy Powell first. Guy, if you really don't want to do something, but you have to do it, how do you get yourself motivated?
Close my eyes and do it. It's just, it's easier to jump in and do it than to fret about it and procrastinate and put it off for however long. It's just get it over with, rip that Band-Aid off, tear the scab off, and just do it.
Okay.
He has a heck of a lot of self-discipline, I'll tell you that.
Well, I have a lot of scars left from all the scabs I've torn off.
Christian,
I'm sure.
Christian, what do you do to motivate yourself?
I was gonna say take a nap, but no. I do 3 different things. So one is I will like literally close my eyes and just meditate and be like, do I really need to do this? Like, what's the intention behind it? And try to really understand like if it's just busy work or not. Second thing I'll do is I'll have a really hard workout and just like sweat. And typically after that, it gives me the courage to do whatever I'm avoiding. Or the third is I have these little Louise Hayes cards that like are positive affirmations. And so if I need kind of a pick me up, I'll take one of those and it typically guides me to wherever I need to go.
Wow.
Those are all really great ideas. I like the idea of having positive affirmations or motivational statements. You're laughing at me, and I can't keep my train of thought, Elizabeth. What did I say that was so funny?
It's just for goofing up your words again, but that's what.
Well, that's
love
because I
about
was
you,
looking
so-
at you. All right. It was your fault.
of that. Nikki, what do you do to get yourself motivated for a task you've been putting off?
So everything that everybody has said, I do that. You know, I'm working from home. Sometimes it's really hard to get motivated. So I have to have a routine. I have to exercise. Whether I lose weight or not, I'm not certain. I just think it's just getting up out of the bed and things like that. And then just learning to practice self-care. You know, some days I just need to sit on that couch and do nothing, you know, because if I don't, you know, I'm really going to stress myself out. But then also just trying to understand what, you know, I'm a therapist. So trying to counsel myself, like, why don't I want to do this? You know, something else is happening and trying to work through some of those things. But the biggest thing is, you know, really just get moving, ripping the Band-Aid off. And sometimes you just need a good cry. You just need to get in the bathroom and cry it out. And once you cry, it's like, all right, girl, get yourself together. We're going to do this thing. I think when you hold it in and you try to, it's too much. So you just got to cry it out. So that's what I do.
Okay, what about you, Kenya?
No, that's great advice. I cry a lot, actually, I think. Probably more than the average individual, but in a therapeutic way. My husband would disagree. He'd be like, you're driving me crazy, but it's a purposeful cry nonetheless.
That's right.
So I would say for me, to-do list or like major, like I know the days when I don't have one versus the days I do have one. So when and even if it's 3 things I write down, like at least there's some accountability there for me. And I'm just going to piggyback off of what Guy said. I do everything afraid. So if I, you know, get a new training done and I've never taught a specific format before, I never wait until I have it perfected. I just jump out there and I do it and rip the Band-Aid off. So do it afraid.
Good.
Excellent. What about you, Richard?
Well, you know, I'm going to say something ridiculous because
Yeah,
this
you
is
always
my
do.
point in the show to be ridiculous. Now, what I do is I imagine the worst possible things that could happen to me and my family. Like I could end up in bankruptcy and lying in the gutter in the street. And that usually terrifies me enough to get motivated and do the thing that I have to do.
Just do that all the time anyway. Well, I found something extremely motivating these last couple of weeks, and that is that I have a strict deadline, a non-negotiable deadline. If I don't get this patent application done by September 21st, I lose my filing date and my patent rights. And I'll tell you what, that's lit a fire under me.
See, it's just a variation on what I just said. You just think about the worst thing that can happen, and then that's motivating. Fear.
Like even for normal tasks, if I set a deadline for myself and it's just in my head, you got to get it done by this date, that can be motivating.
Yeah, and I use other techniques too. I don't scare myself to death with every single email. You know, it wouldn't make sense. But anyway, I think it's time for the wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for your insights and sharing.
So let's share everybody's websites one more time. So our guest today was Guy Powell. He is a marketing expert, and his website is ProRelevant, ProRelevant.com, ProRelevant.com. And he also has a book about what to do after COVID. And what was the name of the book again?
Post-COVID Marketing Machine.
So if you're going to buy one of his books, I mean, he's gotten a lot of great books, but this is the one I'm going to read first.
and get the relevant data. That's what this is all about is know your customers, know what they're doing, and get the relevant data.
And then we had somebody with some groundbreaking science. So Christian Seale with Vitruvia, Vitruvia.co, not .com, .co. And this is groundbreaking pain treatment that can oftentimes help people not have to have surgery. So
I'm definitely going to check into this. I could be a patient of his for years.
right. And he's in New York. So he's in a few cities now, but he's gathering practitioners to do this all over the country. So soon it will be coming to a city near you, we hope.
Yeah.
And then if you're a woman of faith looking for the most inspiring 3 days you could possibly have, Niki Brown has Ignite Summit, ignitesummit.org, or you can find her at nikibrown.org. And her summit is November 10th through 12th at the Chase Center in Wilmington, Delaware. And she will have women from all over the country coming to support each other and interact. She's going to have high-level speakers and presenters. It's just going to be an amazing 3 days.
I feel inspired and ignited now just listening to her. Can you imagine what 3 days of this program is going to be like? You're going to come out of there like a rocket.
Right. Her positive energy is amazing. So
I love it. So unfortunately, we need to sign off now for this week, but we'll return to the station next week with another episode of Passage to Profit. Before we go, I'd like to thank the Passage to Profit team, Noah Fleischman, our producer, Alicia Morrissey, our program director, and Mark Wilson, our syndication manager. Our podcast can be found tomorrow anywhere you find your podcast. Just look for the Passage to Profit show, and don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And remember, while the information provided during this program is believed to be correct, never take legal step without checking with your legal professional first. That's it for now. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening, everybody. This is Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart signing off.